Strict borders exist to separate territories between countries, states, and sometimes even exes.
I
We should
do.
break up.
What?
Okay, maybe setting borders between exes is a stretch, but actual territorial boundaries offer us a glimpse into the friendly or hostile relationships between neighboring lands. Let's draw the line in these 10 strangest borders on Earth. What's up, Factnatics? This is Discovery Amuse, serving up your daily dose of the most outrageous, outlandish, and out-of-this-world fun facts. Stick around for our number one pick because instead of a standoff, the guards in that border do a dance-off. You can't make this stuff up. Pack your bags, cause here we go. Number 10, the ice curtain. Did you know that there's a place on Earth where a distance of just a little over 2 miles spells a 21-hour time difference? So yeah, basically crossing that border will take you to yesterday or tomorrow, depending on where you're coming from. The Diomede Islands are located in the Bering Strait between Alaska and Russia. The smaller island belongs to the US and is habited by a small community of Eskimos, while the larger one is a Russian territory that's home to a military outpost.
See, you don't really need money in Diomede, if you live traditionally. And everything is there except sugar, coffee, but everything is there.
Incidentally, the international dateline passes between these islands, which causes a 21-hour time difference between the two Diomedes, despite just being 2.3 miles apart. Because of the time difference, the Diomedes has been dubbed as the Tomorrow and Yesterday Islands. If you think about it, people from the US side can literally look into the future just by peeping over the Russian land. So basically, tomorrow here is just a few miles away, despite what Annie had us believe.
I love ya tomorrow. You're only a day away.
Stay until the end to witness an intense but entertaining military showdown between two South Asian nations. Number 9, cross-country zipline. Dreaming of an extreme cross-country adventure? How about traveling from one country to another by gliding 300 feet above the water? Thrill seekers, welcome to the Limite Zero, the only zipline in the world that takes you over an international border. This mid-air attraction connects Sanlúcar de Guadiana in Andalusia, Spain, to Algarve in Portugal. The unique trans-border experience was the brainchild of Englishman David Jarman. The trip along the 2,300-foot-long steel cable takes less than a minute, but you will arrive in Portugal 1 hour later due to the difference in time zones. Oh boy, time sure flies when you're having fun here. Number 8, Northwest Angle.
Can you imagine having to tell people that to have a passport to come over for supper for your house?
This has been the age-old dilemma of residents living in the Northwest Angle, otherwise known as the Angle, a part of Minnesota that's awkwardly wedged between Canada's Manitoba and Ontario provinces. Thus, driving to the Angle means having to pass through Canadian borders. The actual boundary is not manned, but visitors are expected to proceed to a spot called Jim's Corner and use a video phone to contact either Canadian or U.S. Customs to make declarations. The usual immigration questions are also asked, like where you're headed and why, and what you plan to do there. Seems a bit too cumbersome, especially for locals who just want to go to town for a supply run.
We don't go to town very often as a rule, just because we don't want to, but at least once a week.
According to historical accounts, the reason for this is that during the time of the Treaty of Paris in the 1700s, an amateur mapmaker made a mistake in marking the Mississippi River's source. Poor man must have been exiled from both countries. Number 7, No Man's Land. Bir Tawil is an 800-square-mile patch of land located between Egypt's southern border and Sudan's northern border. And since neither country wants to claim ownership of it, a Virginia dad did. In the hopes of making his daughter Emily a princess, Jeremiah Heaton decided to go to Bir Tawil, one of the few unclaimed territories in the world, and plant their own flag there. Princess Emily already has a plan on how to make good use of her kingdom.
We're going to help kids in Africa that don't have food, and we're going to build a garden as big as our land.
In 1899, the United Kingdom and Egypt entered into a territorial agreement which placed Bir Tawil under Sudan's jurisdiction and the Halayib Triangle under Egypt. But in 1902, the UK made a separate administrative boundary. This time, Bir Tawil was assigned under Egypt and Halayib went to Sudan. Both countries prefer the more valuable Halayib territory, so Egypt chooses to recognize the 1899 agreement, while Sudan insists on the legitimacy of the 1902 version. Ultimately, Bir Tawil became the land nobody wanted. Unfortunately, laying claim to a land isn't as easy as planting a flag and taking a selfie as Jeremiah did.
He has to establish effective occupation of this land.
Sorry, pal, but Princess Emily will always have my full support and loyalty. Number 6. U.S.-Mexico beach border.
A nadar o navegar, por favor asegúrese de regresar al país de su partida. Es decir, si empezó a nadar en los Estados Unidos, por favor regrese a los Estados Unidos.
Yep, surf at your own risk on this beach because see that line where the fence meets the sea? That's the boundary between San Diego, California and Tijuana, Mexico. In recent years, these 12-foot-high steel fences have turned into some kind of rendezvous point where families from opposite sides of the border can see and talk to each other at the section called the Friendship Park.
In the moments when I'm here, I try to feel strong with her, but then once I leave, I feel very, very sad.
Number 5. Derby Line Stansted border. Contrary to the highly militarized southern border, the line that separates the towns of Derby Line in Vermont and Stansted, Quebec, is peppered with flower pots. Rumor has it that surveyors who mapped out this border were drunk, while other stories claim that the line was a mistake. But whatever the real score was, since the early 1700s, residents of these two towns lived as one big community and people moved from US to Canada fairly easily. However, after the 9/11 terror attacks, stricter measures were implemented and gates were built on certain streets. So now, locals are advised to have their identification documents with them, especially when crossing borders.
It hasn't changed a lot, but it has gone through its roller coaster, and it's a hard pill to swallow that we have to prove who we are to go visit our neighbors across the street.
Number 4. Netherlands-Belgium border. The small, quiet town of Barle sits right in the middle of one of the most complicated borders in the world. You literally have to look down and find the crosses on the road to know which country you're in. And there are dozens of these crossings all over town. Barle is split into two. The Barle-Nassau, which is part of Netherlands, and Barle-Hertog, which is owned by Belgium. But it's not as simple as a straight line. No thanks to a deal made between feudal lords back in 1198, which divided the town through a frontier that zigzagged through public and private spaces. Barle residents now have to live with 2 postal services, 2 churches, 2 bus companies, and 2 town halls. They even have 2 separate representatives.
Als je het hebt over wegen, als je het hebt over verlichting, als je het hebt over riolering, dat moeten we echt samen doen.
The drinking age in the Netherlands is 18, while it's 16 in Belgium. And fireworks are illegal in the Netherlands, but are safe to sell in Belgium. But despite the differences in governing rules, the town stands as a shining example of how 2 sovereign states can coexist harmoniously. Number 3. Poland-Ukraine land art. Something fishy's going on at the border of Poland and Ukraine, literally.
Smells like fish in here. What is that? What was that? Some sort of signal? Huh? Is that a signal?
An aerial view of the boundary will reveal these 2 gigantic fish crop circles that expand into both territories. Spoiler alert, these are not made by extraterrestrial life forms. These are the handiwork of Polish artist Jaroslaw Koziara. He seeded 23 kinds of plants to create this installation, which traverses the two European nations. He said Ukraine is not part of the Schengen area, making this specific border a marking line for the European continent. But through this project, he wanted to symbolize the long-standing history and trade relationship between the two countries, which goes beyond what he described as artificial geopolitical boundaries set by humans. Number 2. Korean Demilitarized Zone. The Korean DMZ has been dubbed one of the world's most intense and most highly militarized borders.
The way that we're located right now, we're essentially surrounded on 3 sides by North Korea. So there's the whole JSA, the Joint Security Area, juts out kind of like a finger into North Korea, and so we're under pretty strict observation at all times.
North Korean defectors who try to escape to South Korea through the DMZ are immediately shot as soon as they are caught. The only area where you can safely step into the other side is within the walls of these conference rooms or blue houses, sitting on top of the demarcation line. These concrete tents are considered neutral ground, and this is where negotiations between officials are held. Limited, guided tours are allowed here, and military personnel will make sure you don't overstep your bounds.
Cross over? No, sorry, I can't cross over.
Before we go to our number 1 pick, do us a solid and make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to choose all so you won't miss out on any of our latest life-changing, boredom-busting content, and of course, be sure to turn on notifications in your app settings. Number 1. India-Pakistan dance-off. These neighboring countries have engaged in several wars and are currently in a nuclear conflict. And every day during sundown, the tension between the two nations culminates in a military showdown at the Wagah-Atari border crossing. But instead of a violent show of force, they do this. It's a military dance showdown! This war dance ceremony began in 1959 and has become a unique spectacle for both locals and tourists. The energy is so palpable that it's almost like you're watching a sports match. It starts with the opening of the border gates, followed by the synchronized lowering of the flags. Then the tallest and most intimidating soldiers from both sides face off with acrobatic high kicks and loud stomps as if in a testosterone-charged ballet. At the end of the performance, the soldiers shake hands and the gates are slammed shut. This border ceremony proves that despite the hostility between India and Pakistan, citizens of both nations can still come together in a fantastic display of goodwill and friendly competition. So, which of these borders would you definitely want to see in person? Let us know in the comments section below. Take home any of our exclusive gear by browsing our merch shelf or clicking the link in the video description. And while you're at it, take our quiz to find out how you can earn extra cash online doing what you do best. Awesome, right? Our unique adventure doesn't end there. Don't miss our countdown of the 10 most heavily guarded places on Earth. Till then, stay in your lane, Factnetics, and see you in the next video.